Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist DT from weatherrisk.com, your commander of chaos, colonel of confusion, and captain of catastrophe. It's Wednesday, and that means it's time for This Week in Weather, and we'll be doing these from now on, right through the summer season, to the hurricane season, and probably into the autumn, every Wednesday. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, there, of course, is the new new website you can see there. So I thought I'd use that as the introduction. In case you haven't been there, you should take a look-see. A lot of great stuff there on the website. So we'll start up by taking a look at recent conditions here. So this is a very nice image because it enables us to go this link here way back in time here. So you can see now this was the upper air map 500 millibars as of May 17th, and you can see as we go run it back in time, you can see that closed low right here. You see this over California. As we advance it, there's another trough coming into British Columbia, so that causes this ridge to form here over the upper plains and the Canadian prairies and the Great Lakes. So this southern low is forced to stall. It can't get over this ridge. It's not strong enough. So the trough that comes in British Columbia, they end up, look what they do. They end up merging almost. You can see that here today on the May 19th. And by this time, the ridges have become massive. We have a big trough in the western Atlantic Ocean, and we end up with a classic looking Omega Ridge. Big trough of California, then the big ridge, the heat dome here, and then another big trough off the East Coast. So this is a classic omega-shaped heat dome, and it's going to mean a lot of hot temperatures east of the Mississippi River and very dry conditions for the next 7 to 10 days, and probably right through the end of the month, and maybe in early June, east of the Mississippi River. This is not a wet-looking map. This is a dry pattern, and the dryness is going to become a problem east of the Mississippi River. Now, as we go further in time, what happens is notice the closed low here in California. You see this monster closed low and over Nevada. Look what it does here. By the time it gets to 72, 80, 84, 96 hours, it goes up into Montana and the Canadian prairies and brings a lot of rain to the Canadian prairies and to the Dakotas and Montana, where they've had a very bad drought. So this is going to be a pretty significant rain event. This will be the second one in 5 or 6 days in the Canadian prairies and the northern Rockies. So that's nice to see. And now it rips off. Look what happens. The dome gets flattened by this feature, but it's still, we end up getting a flat ridge. But coming out of next week, going into the holiday weekend, just a flat zonal ridge with these disturbances in the jet stream, the height lines moving across, the country, bringing different rain chances. This is a very dry pattern. I wanted to show you how dry it has been because this is important. This is the rainfall for the past 2 weeks. Look at the Mid-Atlantic. That red color is 5 to 25% of normal rainfall. Southeast Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, most of North Carolina, West Virginia, Kentucky. Very, very dry conditions. That's the last 14 days. You look at the last 30 days, same sort of thing. And then we can change this and look at the whole country if you wanted to, just to give you an idea of what the scale was. Let's see if we can move it. Here we go. There you go. Now this is last 30 days. Been pretty wet across the southern states, but very dry in Iowa, the Dakotas, Nebraska, Minnesota, the Great Lakes, and then along the middle Atlantic states here. So that's a trend that has to be watched as we go into the summer. We need to get some rain in these areas in the Mid-Atlantic, and we're not going to see any. So if you have farming concerns, you have agricultural concerns, you might want to contact me either on the Twitter page or on the Facebook page, or send me an email at weatherrisk@gmail.com finding out about this next rain, because we have a dryness here problem for the next 2 weeks. There's no doubt about that. Let me show you. This is the this is the 12Z European. Now this is we'll start out here. Let's say we'll go to 72 hours. There's the flow coming in so we have the big high over Virginia, okay, and North Carolina, and we can see that on the GFS maps here. You can see the big high. See where it is right there over Kentucky and Virginia, and the flow is coming around the high in the Gulf of Mexico into Texas, into Louisiana, into eastern Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, around the periphery of the high. But that leaves the Mid-Atlantic, in southern New England and the southeastern states hot and dry, and that's why we don't see any rain here. That's 72 hours. This is day 5. Nothing east of the Mississippi River, bone dry. Now we're getting some of these rains in the Dakotas, Minnesota, and they really need the rain there, so that's good news for those guys. Day 6, we finally get a little bit trying to get into Wisconsin. Day 9, getting to the front, trying to bring some rain, one of these fronts across northern Illinois, Indiana, 1 to 2 inches there. But again, nothing in Virginia, very little in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, southeastern states. Not until day 9 or day 10 do we see any rain in New York State or Pennsylvania. And that doesn't get down into Maryland or Virginia. It's just so more big rains here. Look at the rainfall totals around the periphery of the high here. That purple color is 5 or 6 inches in western Missouri, eastern Kansas. Iowa gets a very good rain there. Put a dent in their drought talk there for the agricultural concerns, I would think. Good rains in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, but not east of the Mississippi River, outside of northern Illinois and Wisconsin. We take a look at the European, it's showing the same sort of thing. Again, look where the big high is over the East Coast. You can see it. And then notice the flow coming from around the high up into Minnesota, up the Mississippi Valley. There's our big rain event for the first one here. Next couple days for the Saskatchewan, Montana, the Dakotas, and then the second one here on this weekend. Nice big event for those guys. But the moisture does not get um, into the eastern Mississippi River. Now, both models do show that this next front on Sunday is going to try and push southward. So we can see the big high here north of the Great Lakes, and the front is running right across the U.S.-Canada border, northern Great Lakes to Maine. And it wants to push southward, and it actually does. Looks like it gets as far south as Virginia and then into Indiana, Illinois, but then it breaks down and it moves back north as a warm front as we go towards Memorial Day weekend. And then finally, this energy comes in, knocks down the heat dome, and we get this front right across the Midwest here, the Great Lakes, New England, with some rain, but not for Virginia, not for North Carolina, not Tennessee, Kentucky. Pretty good rains here in the Midwest and the central and upper plains, the Great Lakes, in the 6 to 10 day, but not any further south than that. So, and the problem is, again, we got to get this pattern to change. And it's not showing any signs of changing. You can clearly see it, the same sort of thing here. Just, all the rain is to the north. Now, one of the reasons why, let me change the map here, so we get a better idea on the European. I want to show you what the European is doing. This should work out nicely. And you can see that the heat dome very nicely in shape here at 72 hours out. And again, notice the huge upper low in California, Nevada, the other one in the Western Atlantic Ocean. Classic omega pattern. You all see that. Now it goes up to the Canadian prairies, knocks the heat dome down. Then from the Canadian prairies, Manitoba goes right across into Ontario. Now the ridge gets flattened at this point, 162 hours, day 7, on Wednesday, May 26th, going into Memorial Day weekend, but the ridge is still there. So it gets flattened. Now the European has a new trough on Friday, May 28th in the southwestern states, California, Nevada, Oregon. See the blue color there, it's a negative anomaly. And that produces another ridge over the eastern U.S., meaning more warm temperatures, some 90s definitely, and dry conditions. Now, this sort of pattern at day 9 or 10, this is producing a front right across the plains into the Great Lakes and maybe to northern New England, but no further south. The ridge is still there over the southern states, so we're not getting any moisture into the dry areas of the southern states. Everything is essentially Interstate 80 northward, maybe Interstate 70, but mostly Interstate 80 northward. So it's a very pronounced, very interesting pattern, and I don't know what it means for the summer. One thing I did want to point out are the teleconnections here. So let me call them back up again so you can see them very nicely. If you look at all the models here, this is the NAO, the Greenland block, and you can see it's generally positive, and so is the Arctic Oscillation, generally positive. The PNA, which is a trough on the west coast, very strongly negative. Then it goes towards neutral, maybe even a little positive on June 1st. And the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, which is the Western Canada ridge, that turns negative. So we're getting a ridge in Western Canada, or at least neutral anyway. And if we go further out in time, let's take a look. Let's say at the European matrix. Let's take a look at the PNA. Notice it's very negative right in here in the middle here, the end of May. So that's a persistent trough on the west coast. Then as we go towards June, look at the positive reds and green, excuse me, the reds and browns showing up in oranges. That's the positive values. That could mean we might get a trough on the west coast, I mean, a ridge on the west coast as we go into June, which would potentially make it cooler for the eastern United States and break the heat ridge over the southeastern states. Maybe. We'll see. If that happens, that's not going to be till the middle of June anyway. Okay, well, anyway, that's the presentation. This is meteorologist DT from Weather Risk. I will see you over on the Twitter page and on the website and over on the Facebook page. Thanks for your time and attention. Like I said, we'll be doing this from now on every week, hopefully every Wednesday. That's the idea anyway. So we'll see you then.